And welcome back to another episode of the Tar Heels Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Grant Sastre, right here at the Dean Smith Center, better known as the Dean Dome, of course, here in Chapel Hill. I am here after what was a great night for Tar Heel basketball. North Carolina defeated Kansas 87-74. It is the first time since 2002 that the Tar Heels have beaten Kansas. The last 5 meetings didn't go their way, including a national championship where UNC held a 15-point lead at halftime and then ended up losing 72-69. Of course, he had a 2011-2012. You lost an Elite 8 to Kansas in Kansas City. St. Louis. It was in Missouri. Let's say that. In a year where really a lot of North Carolina fans felt like they were just as good as the 2011-2012 Kentucky team. And really, because those are the two best teams in the country, right? I mean, and 07-08, where Kansas blew North Carolina at the building. North Carolina was the number one team in the tournament. And Kansas, of course, beat them in the Final Four and then eventually won the national championship that year. So it's really just a retribution. And really last year they lost 92-89, what was a great game. And what you saw tonight was not only just old school Carolina basketball, but what Carolina used to look like. You know, it's very clear that compared to last year, Kansas had the height advantage over UNC. This year, UNC had the height advantage over Kansas, and that showed. I mean, look at the points in the paint. UNC had 48 points. The Kansas is 20. They had 39 rebounds compared to Kansas' 27, so 12 rebound differential right there. It made all the difference in the world. Of course, you're hearing a lot of banging and everything. They're getting ready to convert the arena to something else. I know all this because I was in college. I had to do the same thing as a football worker. So I apologize for all the loud noises. I just want to let you guys know. But, yeah, North Carolina, very dominant night. Caleb Wilson led the way with 24 points. He also had 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 steals. Just a great night for him, and really it was what makes this performance even better was simply the fact that, before the game, or really the last 24 hours, he was pushing a wideout. Originally, they were supposed to kind of do some sort of blue out or whatever. They had like 2,500 blue shirts ready to go to give the students, and then all of a sudden, everything reversed course, and then it became a wideout. And that just shows you the type of, not only, I would guess you could say leadership of him, but also the aura around it. I mean, he's only been on campus for 3 months, and he literally convinced the university to do a whiteout in less than 24 hours. That's just really pretty incredible stuff right there from a guy who's 18 years old. And, this guy who, reads a lot about leadership and power. I mean, he told me after the game that he reads a lot, not only reads a lot, well, he's already said he reads a lot of stoicism, but he read something on power. And, of course, he showed a lot of power tonight. 24-7, 24, 7, 4, and 4. 4 assists, 4 steals, and of course, just a great night overall for him. But also Henry Fassar, 8 for 12, 20 points, and 4 rebounds. He also had a block. Even though he had 4 turnovers in the first half, he had a strong second half. And really what makes, and speaking of turnovers, North Carolina had 10 turnovers in the first half. In the second half, they only had 1. And that's really, it's really incredible, right? They only turned the ball over once in a 20-minute half. That's really hard to do for any basketball team, right? You could be the 96-97 Bulls. You could be and think of any basketball team, regardless of level. The fact that they only turned the ball over one time is pretty remarkable, and it really was the difference in that second half. I mean, 58 second half points. Only had 1 turnover in the second half. I mean, there's a lot of things you could list to what led to North Carolina winning tonight. It was just a great overall performance by the Tar Heels. Also, speaking of Seth Trimble, he went 7 for 17, 17 points and 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. And one of the things about him is that he actually scored most of his points in the second half. So once again, I mean, North Carolina is showing you that they're a strong second half team. Seth Trimble is a strong second half player. Once again, apologize for the loud baiting and everything. They're getting ready, they're doing their job, and everything like that. But that's how it is at the Dean Dome, right? There's a lot of stuff going on. So once again, I want to mention that as well. So if you guys can't hear me, that's what's going on. But yeah, But anyway, it was a huge win for UNC. Huge win. And really, I guess just say it was a much needed win, right? There's a lot of pressure on this program right now. A lot of people are, saying wondering if Huber's on the hot seat. Everyone's wondering if North Carolina is truly North Carolina, right? A lot of people have him exactly at number 25. Some people even have him outside the top 25. For a lot of people in the national realm, they see this UNC team as an underrated team. And I've mentioned before, not only in the podcast, but also in my written work, that it's North Carolina performance ever since Hubert took over the job, right? North Carolina has always done better when they're underrated rather than they're overrated. Underrated rather than when they're the number one team in the country per se. For example, Hubert's first year, they were kind of slept on all year. Then they had that late run that started with UNC defeating Duke in Coach K's last game. And of course, that carried over with them going to the national championship game that year, and also beating Duke a second time in the Final Four, right? Then the next year, the number one team in the country because they had virtually everyone back, and then they have a dud of a year. They don't go to the tournament. They miss the tournament. However, the next year, when they're in the 20s, ranked in the 20s, they ended up winning the SEC regular season title, and then went to Sweet 16 where they ultimately lost against Alabama, a team that ended up going to the Final Four. And then, of course, last year, where they're ranked pretty highly, they barely made the tournament. They were 23-14. I mean, there's a really lot of controversy around them making the tournament last year. And I think a lot of that stench from last year carried over to this year in terms of how the national media saw North Carolina, right? And you're seeing a lot of tweets right now. They're saying, oh, well, North Carolina, they get slept on, and North Carolina, they're much better than we thought. And I understand that, right? They don't cover the team every day. But when we've gotten access about this team, when we've interviewed this team, and just looking at their demeanor throughout the year, this was a very confident team. Like, Hubert seemed much more, talking to different people, he seemed much more relaxed than he had been in years past, and it shows. I mean, and that's what happens when you have good players like Caleb Wilson. That's what happens when you have good players like Henry Fassar. That's what happens when you have veteran leaders like a Seth Trimble. And also Kyan Evans is balling out, right? Speaking of Kyan Evans, 5 for 11, 12 points, 2 steals, and 3 assists. I mean, he had a great game as well, and a lot of that came in the second half. I mean, so, of course, you don't want to keep having this team ball out in the second half. You want to be more consistent. But when you go up against a good team like Kansas, you got to do what you got to do, period, right? Basketball, of course, sometimes it's a game of luck. But also, luck also comes from being in these types of situations, being in these types of big games. And that's what North Carolina did tonight. Once again, final score, North Carolina 87, Kansas 74, in a top 25 team between two blue bloods, by the way, who never played each other in Chapel Hill. This is the first time Kansas and North Carolina play each other in Chapel Hill, so it's a very special night, not only for North Carolina, but for Kansas as well. Of course, Roy was here. Of course, all the Kansas players actually shook Roy's hand, because remember, he's also very important in Kansas basketball history as well, a lot of shared history. So that's what made it even more shocking, that this is the first time these two programs play each other in Chapel Hill, just because of all the shared history between the two programs. But once again, North Carolina 87, Kansas 74. That's going to wrap it up here from the Dean Dome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time. Of course, also remember, we got football tomorrow, 4:30, with North Carolina taking on Stanford. Remember, that game's on the CW. It's not going to be on the ESPN network. So if you have YouTube TV, you're in luck, because the game's going to be on the CW. So we're going to have a lot of our stuff for that game tomorrow as well throughout the day. Gamers, reactions, stuff like that. So make sure to tune in with that as well, along with our basketball coverage. North Carolina will take on NC Central Tuesday, 9 o'clock game, unfortunately. So that's the next time you'll see the Tar Heels play right here at the Dean Dome. Once again, Thank you for tuning in for the North Carolina for the Tar Heels Insider podcast. I'm your host, Grant Sashroy, the lead beat writer for Tar Heels on SI. And I'll see you guys next time.